Welcome to another exciting episode on Ben 10 What If. Today, we're exploring a captivating tale called What If Ben 10 Was Evil from the Start. Before we begin, if you enjoy our content, please support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps more than you know. And now, the story awaits. Chapter 2, Masters of the Earth. 3 weeks after finding the Omnitrix, Ben Tennyson sat on top of the water tower overlooking Bellwood, dangling his legs over the edge like he owned the place. In a way, he kinda did now. Tribute Collection Day, he grinned, checking the weird alien watch on his wrist. The device had changed his life in ways he couldn't have imagined that first night in the woods. Now, it was changing Bellwood too. Below him, the morning sun cast long shadows across a town that whispered his name, or rather, the names of his alien forms, with a mixture of fear and awe. Shop owners left protection payments in designated drop spots. Kids wore homemade t-shirts with crude drawings of Heat Blast or Diamond Head. The local news ran daily segments speculating about the alien vigilante situation. Vigilante. Ben snorted at the word. Made it sound like he was some kind of hero. The Omnitrix beeped, fully charged after his morning patrol as XLR-8. Ben hopped down from his perch and made his way to the ladder. Time to make the rounds. His first stop was the mall, where the manager of Game Zone waited nervously by the service entrance, clutching a paper bag. Here's this week's payment, the man stammered, thrusting the bag forward when Ben rounded the corner. Plus the new releases you wanted. Ben peeked inside, cash and 4 video games that weren't even supposed to hit shelves until next month. Smart man, Ben nodded, tucking the bag into his backpack. Any trouble with those shoplifters I scared off? And no sir, not since you, demonstrated what would happen. Ben smirked, remembering how he'd used Ghost Freak to possess one of the teenage thieves, making him eat garbage in front of his horrified friends. Good to hear. Remember, you've got my number if anyone gives you problems. His next stops followed a similar pattern. Nervous civilians, tribute collected, reminders of his protection. It wasn't extortion, Ben told himself. He was providing a service. Crime in his territories had plummeted since he'd established his dominance. The police couldn't do what he did, nobody could. As he cut through an alley behind the auto parts store, a familiar voice called out. Tennyson. Ben froze, then slowly turned. Gwen stood at the alley entrance, arms crossed and eyes narrowed in that self-righteous way that made him want to turn into Heat Blast and melt the pavement beneath her feet. What do you want? He demanded. Grandpa's worried sick about you, she said, walking closer. You haven't answered his calls in days. Been busy, Ben shrugged, patting his backpack. Town doesn't run itself. Gwen's eyes flashed with anger. Run itself? Is that what you call what you're doing? You're just a glorified bully with a fancy watch. Better than being a powerless nobody, Ben shot back. How's that working out for you, by the way? Something strange happened then. Gwen's hands glowed briefly with pinkish energy. It vanished so quickly Ben almost thought he'd imagined it. I'm not powerless, she said quietly. And neither were you, even before the Omnitrix. Ben laughed. Save the pep talk. I'm doing fine without your approval. You call this fine? Gwen gestured to his backpack. Extorting businesses. Terrorizing people. Mom and Dad are asking questions, Ben. They know something's wrong. They filed a missing persons report. That caught him off guard. They what? What did you think would happen? You disappeared 3 weeks ago. They're frantic. Gwen stepped closer. Grandpa's been covering for you, saying you're still with us on the road trip, but the police are getting involved. It won't be long before they put it together. Ben hadn't thought about his parents much lately. He'd been too caught up in his new life, his growing power base, the thrill of finally being somebody important. Let them try to find me, he said finally. Not like they can do anything about it. This isn't you, Ben, Gwen's voice softened. The Omnitrix is changing you. No, Ben corrected her, it's just letting me be who I always wanted to be. A criminal. A winner. Ben turned away. Tell Grandpa I'm fine. And tell my parents, tell them whatever you want. It doesn't matter anymore. He twisted the Omnitrix dial and slammed it down before Gwen could respond. The familiar green light enveloped him, and seconds later, XLR-8 zoomed away, leaving his cousin alone in the alley. Ben ran until the anger subsided, the world a blur around him. Who was Gwen to judge him? What did any of them know about how it felt to be powerless, overlooked, just another face in the crowd? The Omnitrix had given him a chance to be extraordinary, and he'd seized it. Anyone would have done the same. Wouldn't they? He skidded to a halt at the abandoned subway station he'd been using as one of his hideouts. The place was perfect, secluded, forgotten by the city, with enough room to store his growing collection of tributes and experiment with his alien forms. As he reverted to human form, Ben noticed something immediately wrong. The padlock he'd placed on the maintenance door hung broken, the door itself slightly ajar. Who's stupid enough to steal from me, he muttered, activating the Omnitrix again. This time, he selected Diamond Head, perfect for dealing with intruders. The crystalline alien's body formed around him, hard and gleaming. Ben flexed his diamond hands and pushed the door open slowly. Inside, the dim emergency lights revealed a figure rummaging through his stockpile of electronics, game consoles, laptops, smartphones he'd collected over the past weeks. You picked the wrong stash to raid, Ben called out, forming his arm into a crystalline blade. The figure whirled around, a teenager with dark hair and a permanent scowl. He wore a ratty t-shirt under a torn jacket, and his eyes widened at the sight of Diamond Head. Whoa, easy there, Sparkles, the teen held up his hands. Just browsing the merchandise. It's not for sale, Ben growled, advancing. And the name's Diamond Head, not Sparkles. The teen smirked. Cute name. I'm Kevin. Kevin Levin. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device that looked like it had been cobbled together from spare parts. And I wasn't planning to buy. Put that down before I make you eat it, Ben threatened, raising his blade arm. Instead, Kevin placed his hand on a nearby laptop. To Ben's shock, electricity began to flow from the computer into Kevin's arm, crackling across his skin like blue lightning. The laptop's screen went dark as it drained completely. Here's the thing about me, Kevin grinned, his entire body now crackling with absorbed energy. I take what I want. He thrust both hands forward, sending a massive blast of electricity straight at Ben. The energy struck him square in the chest, powerful enough to send him crashing into the far wall. The hell? Ben grunted, climbing back to his feet. The blast had hurt, but Diamond Head's crystalline body had absorbed most of the impact. Energy absorption, Kevin explained, grabbing a smartphone and draining it too. Pretty handy trick, right? I can take energy from anything, electronics, power lines. His grin widened, even alien freaks. He launched himself at Ben, hands outstretched. Ben barely had time to form a crystal shield before Kevin made contact. The teen's hands sank into the diamond surface, and Ben felt a strange draining sensation, like the power that fueled his transformation was being siphoned away. With a desperate heave, Ben threw Kevin off. You're one of them, he realized. Another alien. Kevin picked himself up, brushing dust from his jeans. Half alien, if you want to get technical. Mom's human, Dad was something else. He flexed his fingers, which now had a slight crystalline sheen to them. Thanks for the power boost, by the way. Never absorbed diamond energy before. To Ben's shock, Kevin's arm morphed partially into a crystalline structure similar to Diamond Head's. How did you, told you? I absorb energy. Kevin formed his partially transformed arm into a crude spike. Including the energy that lets you shapeshift. Can't do a full transformation like you, but I'll take what I can get. He charged again, moving faster than before. This time, Ben was ready. He created a series of crystal projectiles and launched them at Kevin, forcing the teen to dodge and weave. Not bad, Kevin admitted, deflecting one shard with his crystalline arm. You've got moves for a kid. I'm not a kid, Ben snapped, creating a larger crystal formation that erupted from the floor beneath Kevin, catching him off guard and sending him flying. Kevin crashed into Ben's pile of loot, scattering electronics everywhere. He groaned, trying to stand, but Ben was on him instantly, pinning him with a massive crystal hand. Game over, Ben growled, forming his free hand into a sharp point aimed at Kevin's throat. Any last words? To his surprise, Kevin laughed. Yeah. Look behind you. Ben didn't fall for the obvious trick. Nice try. Your loss, Kevin shrugged, then his body suddenly lit up with stored electricity. The shock traveled through Ben's crystalline form, amplified rather than dampened by the conductive properties of the diamond structure. Ben howled in pain, his grip loosening enough for Kevin to break free. The teen delivered a solid punch with his part crystal fist, cracking Ben's face and sending him staggering backward. The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest began blinking red, a warning that the transformation was about to time out. Great timing as usual. Looks like your battery's running low, Kevin taunted. What happens when you turn back to normal? Something tells me you're a lot squishier in your real form. Ben needed to end this fast. He concentrated, channeling all his remaining power into one desperate attack. The floor beneath them rumbled as massive crystal spikes erupted in a wave, forcing Kevin to retreat toward the exit. This isn't over, Kevin called, backing away. I'll be seeing you around, Diamond Boy. Count on it, Ben replied, watching as Kevin disappeared through the doorway. The moment he was gone, the Omnitrix timed out, leaving Ben human and exhausted. He collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Someone with powers like his, different, but just as formidable. Someone who wasn't afraid to use those powers for personal gain. Someone who might understand what it felt like to be different, to be powerful in a world of ordinary people. Kevin Levin, Ben muttered, a smile slowly spreading across his face. Interesting. Miles away, in the confines of the Rust Bucket, Max Tennyson hunched over a complicated array of alien technology spread across the dining table. The RV was parked deep in the woods outside Bellwood, hidden from curious eyes. Gwen watched her grandfather work, concern etched on her face. Anything? Max adjusted a dial on what looked like a modified ham radio. Nothing yet. The Plumber communications network has been dormant for years. Most of my old colleagues are retired or gone. But someone has to be listening, right? Gwen pressed. You said the Omnitrix was the most powerful device in the galaxy. Doesn't anyone care that it's in the hands of a 10-year-old megalomaniac? Max winced at the description of his grandson. It's complicated, Gwen. The official Plumber presence on Earth was withdrawn after the Vilgax incursion was repelled. Those of us who stayed behind did so unofficially, to keep watch. So who are you trying to contact? Anyone, Max admitted, frustration evident in his voice. An old friend, a former partner, even. He hesitated. Your grandmother. Gwen's eyes widened. Grandma was a plumber too. One of the best, Max smiled sadly. She's been off-world for years on a deep-cover mission. But if anyone would know what to do about the Omnitrix, it's Verdona. A static crackle from the radio drew their attention. Max quickly adjusted the frequency, and a voice emerged through the noise. Repeat, this is Magister Labrid responding to unauthorized Plumber transmission in Sector 2814. Identify yourself immediately. Max grabbed the microphone. This is Max Tennyson, Plumber ID XJ77. Authentication code, Red Sun Delta. A brief pause followed. Tennyson. I thought you retired years ago. Emergency situation, Magister, Max replied grimly. The Omnitrix has been activated on Earth. The voice on the other end cursed softly. Confirmed sightings have been coming in for weeks. Azmouth is furious. The device was never supposed to land on your planet. It didn't just land, Max explained. It bonded with my grandson. Another, longer pause. Your grandson? A 10-year-old boy named Ben, Max's voice cracked slightly. He's using its powers irresponsibly. I need help containing the situation before Vilgax traces the energy signature. Too late for that, Labrid responded. We have confirmed reports that Vilgax's ship entered your solar system 2 days ago. He's coming, Tennyson. Max's face went pale. How long do we have? Best estimate? 48 hours, maybe less. I need backup, Max insisted. Ben's a good kid, but the Omnitrix is changing him. If Vilgax gets to him before we can help him understand what he's dealing with, the plumbers can't officially intervene, Labrid cut him off. Earth is a level 2 protected planet. Direct action would violate the non-interference protocols. Max slammed his fist on the table. Damn the protocols. We're talking about the most powerful weapon in the galaxy in the hands of a child. I understand your frustration, Max, Labrid's tone softened. But my hands are tied. The most I can do is send you some equipment drops at the old dead drops. Coordinates to follow on this frequency. It's not enough, Max said quietly. It's all I can offer, Labrid replied. For what it's worth, good luck, old friend. Labrid out. The transmission ended, leaving only static. Max slumped in his seat, looking older than Gwen had ever seen him. So we're on our own, she said finally. Looks that way, Max nodded. Gwen took a deep breath, then raised her hand. Slowly, pink energy began to swirl around her fingertips. Maybe not completely on our own. Max stared in shock. Gwen, what? I've been practicing, she explained, manipulating the energy into a small sphere that hovered above her palm. Ever since that first night, when Ben found the Omnitrix. I started having these feelings. Like something was awakening inside me. Your grandmother's lineage, Max whispered. The anodite genes. They must have activated in response to the Omnitrix energy. I don't know what an anodite is, Gwen said, but I know I can do things now. Maybe enough to help bring Ben back. Max watched the energy dancing around his granddaughter's hand, pride mixing with concern. It's dangerous, Gwen. These powers are exactly what we need right now, she finished firmly. Ben has the Omnitrix. I have, whatever this is. Between us, maybe we have a chance against Vilgax. And if Ben won't help us? Max asked quietly. If he sides with Vilgax? Gwen's expression hardened, the pink energy flaring brighter. Then we'll face them both. Across town, Ben had spent the afternoon tracking down information about his new acquaintance. It hadn't been difficult. Kevin Levin had a reputation and a juvenile record a mile long. Property destruction, theft, assault, all committed with his strange energy absorption powers. Currently homeless, Kevin squatted in various abandoned buildings around Bellwood. He supported himself through theft and selling modified electronics on the black market. In other words, a kindred spirit. Ben found him in an old power station at the edge of town, surrounded by gutted electronics and improvised tools. Kevin looked up from the device he was tinkering with, not seeming particularly surprised to see Ben. Figured you'd track me down, he said casually. Your reputation precedes you, Tennyson. Ben raised an eyebrow. You know who I am. Please, Kevin snorted. The kid who can turn into aliens and has been running a protection racket all over Bellwood? Not exactly a state secret. Plus, I recognized your backpack when you changed back. Ben tensed, ready to activate the Omnitrix at the first sign of trouble. So what now? Round 2. Kevin set down his tools. Actually, I was thinking more like a business proposition. I'm listening. You've got powers. I've got powers, Kevin gestured around the makeshift workshop. I also have skills, technical know-how, street smarts, connections in places a suburban kid like you wouldn't know exist. And? Ben prompted. And we could help each other, Kevin continued. You're thinking too small, Tennyson. Protection money from local shops. Video games and pocket change. With our abilities, we could be looking at much bigger scores. Ben considered the older boy carefully. What did you have in mind? Kevin's grin widened. Ever heard of the Bellwood Reserve? The bank? Not just any bank. It's where they store the real money, corporate accounts, security deposits for the entire county. Kevin pulled out a crude blueprint. 3 vault levels, state-of-the-art security system, armed guards. Impossible for any normal thief. But not for us, Ben finished, beginning to understand. Exactly, Kevin nodded. Your diamond head form could cut through the vault doors like butter. My energy absorption powers could disable the security systems. We'd be in and out before anyone knew what hit them. Ben felt a familiar thrill, the same rush he'd experienced when he first realized what the Omnitrix could do for him. But this was bigger. Much bigger. That's not running a protection racket anymore, he said slowly. That's straight-up robbery. Kevin shrugged. You're already a criminal, Tennyson. Just a small-time one. I'm offering a chance to play in the big leagues. He paused, studying Ben's face. Unless you're scared. The challenge struck a nerve. I'm not scared. Just thinking it through. What's to think about? We take the money, split it 50-50, and set ourselves up for life. No more hiding in abandoned subway stations or power plants. Put that way, it made perfect sense. Ben had already crossed lines, what was one more? And with that kind of money, he could expand his operations, maybe even leave Bellwood behind altogether. When? He asked. Kevin's smile was predatory. Tonight. After closing. Less staff to deal with. I'll be there, Ben promised, already cycling through which alien forms would be most useful for the job. As he turned to leave, Kevin called after him. One more thing, Tennyson. No hesitation tonight. In this business, weakness gets you caught, or worse. Ben looked back over his shoulder. Trust me, Kevin. Weakness isn't my problem. That night, as darkness fell over Bellwood, 2 figures approached the imposing granite facade of the Bellwood Reserve Bank. The building stood 7 stories tall in the financial district, windows darkened save for security lights. Guards make rounds every 15 minutes, Kevin whispered as they crouched in the alley across the street. 2 at the main entrance, 1 patrolling each floor. Security cameras cover every angle. Ben nodded, examining the Omnitrix. So what's the plan? I go ghost freak, phase through the walls, let you in the back. Too risky, Kevin shook his head. We need to disable the power first. Otherwise, the moment the security system detects a breach, it'll trigger a silent alarm to the police station. Leave that to me, Ben said confidently, selecting an alien form he hadn't shown Kevin yet. He slammed down on the Omnitrix, and in a flash of green light, a small insectoid creature with a large cranium stood in his place. What the hell is that supposed to be? Kevin asked skeptically. Call him gray matter, Ben's voice was now high-pitched and slightly nasal. Not much for muscle, but he's got brains to spare. Perfect for a little electrical sabotage. Kevin looked doubtful but nodded toward a utility box at the base of a nearby pole. The main power junction should be accessible from there. Gray matter scurried across the street, his small size making him practically invisible in the darkness. He quickly scaled the utility pole and prized open the junction box with surprising strength for his diminutive form. Child's play, he muttered, examining the complex array of wires and circuits. With nimble fingers, he rearranged connections and bypassed fail-safes, his enhanced intellect making the task trivial. 3, 2, 1. He whispered, connecting 2 final wires. On cue, the lights throughout the bank flickered and died. Emergency generators would kick in soon, but they would only power essential systems, not the full security array. Gray matter scampered back to Kevin. We have approximately 6 minutes before they restore auxiliary power. More than enough time, Kevin grinned, placing his hand against an external power conduit. Electricity crackled as he absorbed energy from the system, causing even the emergency lights to dim momentarily. Let's go. Ben switched forms again, this time transforming into Diamond Head. Together, they approached the rear service entrance. Kevin placed his energized hand against the electronic lock, short-circuiting it with a controlled discharge. The door clicked open. Inside, emergency lights cast eerie shadows through the corridors. A security guard rounded the corner, flashlight in hand. "Hey! Who's there?" he called, reaching for his radio. Before Ben could react, Kevin moved with surprising speed. He grabbed the guard, discharging just enough electricity to render the man unconscious. The guard crumpled to the floor without making a sound. "You didn't have to do that," Ben said, surprised by the efficiency of Kevin's attack. "What did you think we were going to do? Ask nicely." Kevin scoffed, dragging the guard into a supply closet and taking his key card. "This is a heist, Tennyson. Act like it." They made their way to the central stairwell, avoiding another patrol by seconds. 3 flights down, they reached the main vault level. "This is it," Kevin whispered, swiping the stolen key card through a reader. The heavy security door unlocked with a soft beep. "Once we're inside, you'll need to cut through the vault door. It's 2 feet of reinforced steel." "Not a problem," Ben flexed his crystalline hands. The vault anteroom was dark save for the blinking lights of the security panel. Kevin immediately went to work on the electronic lock, absorbing its power and manipulating the circuits with practiced ease. "Almost got it," he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. "This is military-grade encryption." Ben turned his attention to the massive vault door. He formed his hands into diamond-hard cutting tools and began to carve through the metal, which yielded slowly to his relentless pressure. Neither boy noticed the small red light that continued blinking on a secondary security system, one connected to a separate power supply. Ben had cut nearly halfway through when Kevin let out a triumphant whisper. "I'm in. The electronic locks are disabled." "Still need to get through this door," Ben grunted, pushing his powers to the limit. "Hold up," Kevin placed his hand on the vault mechanism. "Let me try something." He closed his eyes, concentrating as electricity flowed from his fingertips into the locking mechanism. There was a series of heavy clicks as massive bolts retracted simultaneously. "How did you?" Ben began. "Spoke the right language to it," Kevin smirked. "Machines understand energy. You just have to know how to ask nicely." Together, they pulled the massive door open just enough to slip inside. The vault beyond was cavernous, lined with safety deposit boxes along every wall. In the center stood a series of cash cages filled with neatly stacked bills. "Jackpot," Kevin breathed, eyes wide with greed. "There must be millions in here." Ben whistled, reverting to human form as the Omnitrix timed out. "How are we going to carry it all?" Already thought of that, Kevin produced several folding canvas bags from inside his jacket. "We take as much as we can carry. Even a fraction of this will set us up for months." They began stuffing cash into the bags, moving quickly and efficiently. Ben couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of accomplishment. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a nobody. Now he was robbing the biggest bank in Bellwood with powers beyond human comprehension. "Check this out," Kevin called, pointing to a separate section of the vault. Inside a glass case sat an array of gleaming gemstones, diamonds, rubies, emeralds. "The reserve holds collateral for major loans. Those rocks are worth more than all this cash combined." Ben eyed the case. The Omnitrix was still recharging, but in a few minutes, he could transform again and break the reinforced glass. Before he could suggest as much, a sudden alarm blared throughout the vault, red lights flashing from hidden emitters in the ceiling. What the hell? Kevin spun around. I disabled the security system. Must be a backup, Ben shouted over the noise, checking the Omnitrix. Still red. We need to go. Now. Kevin hesitated, looking longingly at the gemstones. We can still get them if you, no time. Ben grabbed his arm. Police will be here any second. Reluctantly, Kevin followed Ben toward the exit, both clutching bags of cash. They made it to the stairwell just as the sound of boots on marble echoed from above, security responding to the alarm. This way, Kevin hissed, pulling Ben toward a service corridor. There's a maintenance tunnel that runs under the street. Part of the original sewage system. They sprinted down the hallway, the alarm still wailing behind them. Kevin kicked open a rusted door, revealing a dark passage beyond. Go, he urged, pushing Ben forward. They stumbled through darkness, guided only by the dim light of Kevin's energy-charged hand. The tunnel stank of mold and stagnant water, but it led them away from the bank and the approaching authorities. After what seemed like an eternity of sloshing through ankle-deep water, they emerged from a drainage outlet nearly half a mile away. Police sirens wailed in the distance, but they were clear of the immediate danger zone. Both boys collapsed against the concrete embankment, breathing heavily. That, Kevin gasped, was too close. Ben nodded, still clutching his bag of cash. But we did it. Kevin's face split into a wide grin. Hell yeah, we did. He opened his bag, pulling out a handful of $100 bills. Must be at least 100,000 each. Not bad for a night's work. The reality of what they'd done began to sink in. This wasn't petty extortion or bullying local shop owners. They'd committed grand larceny, a major felony. If caught, Ben wouldn't be grounded, he'd be imprisoned. But instead of fear, he felt exhilarated. Powerful. We make a good team, he said finally. Kevin nodded, his expression turning thoughtful. Yeah, we do. Which is why I'm thinking this shouldn't be a one-time thing. You want to hit another bank? Think bigger, Tennyson. Kevin leaned forward, eyes gleaming in the moonlight. With your powers and my know-how, we could build something real. Not just robberies, but an organization. Territory. Respect. Like a crime syndicate? Ben raised an eyebrow. Like an empire, Kevin corrected. Starting with Bellwood, then expanding. There's a power vacuum in this city. The old gangs are weak, disorganized. The cops are underfunded. It's ripe for someone to take control. The idea was simultaneously terrifying and enticing. Ben had already established himself as a force to be reckoned with in certain neighborhoods. Expanding that influence, with Kevin as a partner, seemed like the logical next step. I'm in, Ben decided. But we do this my way, smart, strategic. No unnecessary violence. Kevin's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Sure, boss. Whatever you say. As they parted ways, each with their stolen fortune, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just crossed a line from which there was no return. But the weight of the money in his hand, the tangible proof of his power, pushed such concerns aside. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Ben and Kevin established a headquarters in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. With their stolen cash, they acquired equipment, paid off local homeless people to act as lookouts, and began mapping out territories across Bellwood. Kevin's technical expertise proved invaluable. He constructed communication devices that couldn't be traced by conventional means and modified the factory's security systems to alert them to any approach. Ben, for his part, became the public face of their operation. As various alien forms, he made appearances throughout the city, delivering a simple message: Bellwood had new management. Some businesses resisted at first. The owner of a popular restaurant downtown refused to pay protection money, insisting he'd go to the police instead. Ben paid him a visit as Ghost Freak, demonstrating exactly how vulnerable the man's family was by appearing in his daughter's bedroom while she slept. The payment arrived the next day, along with a tearful apology. Other criminal elements in the city took notice. A drug dealer named Rojo and her biker gang challenged Ben's authority by attacking one of his collection points. Ben responded as four-arms, dismantling their motorcycles with his bare hands and dangling Rojo from the top of the water tower until she swore allegiance. Within a week, nearly half of Bellwood's underground economy answered to Ben and Kevin. "We're making waves," Kevin noted as they counted the day's proceeds in their factory headquarters. "Big ones." Ben nodded, leaning back in his chair. The Omnitrix gleamed on his wrist, fully charged and ready. "Good. That's the point. It's also dangerous," Kevin cautioned. "I've been hearing things. The police have formed a task force specifically to deal with the alien situation. And there are rumors about federal agents showing up." "Let them come," Ben said dismissively. "What are they going to do against Diamond Head or Heat Blast?" "Maybe nothing," Kevin admitted. "But we should still be careful. Expand more gradually." Ben frowned. This cautious approach didn't match Kevin's usual aggressive style. "What aren't you telling me?" Kevin hesitated, then reached into his pocket and produced a small, metallic sphere about the size of a golf ball. "Found this outside the factory this morning. It's not human tech." Ben took the sphere, examining it carefully. "Alien?" "Definitely," Kevin nodded. "Some kind of surveillance device. Highly advanced. Grandpa Max?" Ben wondered aloud. "Maybe. Or maybe someone else." Kevin took the sphere back. "Either way, we've attracted attention from people with access to tech far beyond Earth level." As if on cue, every electronic device in the room suddenly activated simultaneously, computers, phones, even the old television in the corner. Static filled the screens for a moment before resolving into a face that made Ben's blood run cold. The creature looking out at them was humanoid but clearly alien. Green skin stretched tight over a skull-like face, with red eyes that seemed to burn with malevolence. Tentacles framed the lower portion of its face like a beard of writhing snakes. "Benjamin Tennyson," the creature's voice was deep and rasping. "At last we meet." Ben stood up slowly, positioning himself between Kevin and the screens. "You know my name." "That's not fair, I don't know yours." A smile that contained no warmth spread across the alien's face. "I am Vilgax, conqueror of worlds, supreme commander of the Chimerian Hammer Fleet. And you, young human, have something that belongs to me." Ben's hand went instinctively to the Omnitrix. "Finders keepers, squid face." Vilgax's eyes narrowed. Such bravado from one so small. The Omnitrix is the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, created to preserve alien species, not to be wielded by a primitive Earth child. "Doesn't seem to be working out too badly for me," Ben retorted, though his heart was pounding. This was the alien warlord Grandpa Max had warned him about. "Indeed," Vilgax nodded, his expression calculating. "I have observed your activities with interest. You use the Omnitrix for personal gain, for power over others. Not unlike how I would use it." That comparison stung more than Ben wanted to admit. "What do you want?" "Initially, I came to reclaim the Omnitrix by force," Vilgax admitted. "But having watched you, I am considering an alternative approach." "Which is?" "Alliance," Vilgax pronounced the word carefully. "You have demonstrated ambition, resourcefulness, and a willingness to dominate those weaker than yourself. Admirable qualities." Ben exchanged a glance with Kevin, who looked as surprised as he felt. "You want to team up? I offer you knowledge, the secrets of the Omnitrix that you have barely begun to unlock. Power beyond your imagining. And in return, you will serve as my lieutenant when I add Earth to my growing empire. The proposal hung in the air, tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Ben had already seized control of parts of Bellwood. The idea of extending that control further, with alien technology and Vilgax's forces behind him, was intoxicating. But servitude, being someone's lieutenant, that didn't sit right. And if I refuse? Ben asked. Vilgax's expression hardened. Then I will take the Omnitrix by force. My ship enters Earth's atmosphere in 24 hours. The choice is yours, Benjamin Tennyson. Ally or enemy? Power or destruction? With that, the screens went dark, leaving Ben and Kevin in stunned silence. Well, Kevin said finally, that was dramatic. Ben sank back into his chair, mind racing. Vilgax. Grandpa Max warned me about him. Your grandfather knows about aliens too? Kevin raised an eyebrow. Long story, Ben waved the question away. The point is, Vilgax is bad news. Like, destroy planets bad news. Kevin picked up the alien sphere, turning it over in his hands. So what are you thinking? Take his deal or fight? I don't know, Ben admitted. Fighting sounds like suicide, but working for someone else. It's not ideal, Kevin agreed. But it could be a stepping stone. Learn what we can from him, get access to his tech, then figure out our own play later. The pragmatic approach made sense, but something about it felt wrong. Ben had started down this path to avoid being powerless, to be in control of his own destiny. Becoming Vilgax's lackey seemed like trading one form of powerlessness for another. I need to think, Ben stood up abruptly. And there's someone I should talk to first. Kevin looked surprised. Your grandfather? Ben nodded. He knows more about Vilgax than anyone else on Earth. I need that information to make the right call. You sure that's smart? Last I checked, you weren't exactly on speaking terms with your family. It's not about making nice, Ben said firmly. It's about gathering intelligence. Know your enemy, or potential ally. Kevin shrugged. Your call, boss. Want me to come with? Ben shook his head. No. Keep things running here. I'll be back before Vilgax's deadline. Finding the rust bucket proved easier than Ben had anticipated. Grandpa Max had parked it in the same campground where their summer trip had begun, as if hoping Ben would remember where it all started. Ben approached cautiously, scanning for traps or surveillance. Nothing obvious. The lights were on inside the RV, silhouettes moving behind the curtains. He recognized Gwen's profile and felt an unexpected pang of something. Not quite homesickness, but close. He considered which alien form would be best for this confrontation, then decided against transforming altogether. This needed to be a conversation, not a power play. Taking a deep breath, Ben knocked on the rust bucket's door. The door swung open almost immediately. Grandpa Max stood there, looking both surprised and relieved. Ben. Grandpa, Ben nodded, maintaining his distance. We need to talk. Max stepped aside, gesturing for Ben to enter. Come in. The inside of the RV was just as Ben remembered, except for the alien technology spread across the dining table, communication devices, weapons, and what looked like a holographic map projector. Gwen sat at the table, her hands glowing faintly with pink energy that extinguished the moment she saw Ben. Look what the cat dragged in. Nice to see you too, dweeb, Ben replied, but the old insult lacked its usual venom. You've been busy, Max said quietly, nodding toward a newspaper on the counter. The headline read, Alien Crime Wave Continues, Police Powerless. Ben shrugged. Gotta make a living somehow. Is that what this is about? Max's voice carried no judgment, only sadness. Money? Power? It's about not being pushed around anymore, Ben said defensively. About being somebody that matters. You've always mattered, Ben, Max placed a hand on his grandson's shoulder. To us. To your parents. Ben shrugged off the touch. I didn't come here for a lecture. I came for information. About what? Gwen asked suspiciously. Vilgax, Ben said simply. He contacted me. Offered me a deal. The color drained from Max's face. What kind of deal? Ben explained the warlord's proposal, knowledge and power in exchange for serving as his lieutenant when he conquered Earth. And you're considering it? Gwen asked incredulously. Working with an alien tyrant to enslave your own planet? I'm gathering information before making a decision, Ben snapped. That's why I'm here. Grandpa knows more about Vilgax than anyone else on Earth. Max sank heavily into a chair. It's true. I've faced Vilgax before, years ago when I was still an active plumber. He tried to invade Earth once already. What happened? Ben asked. We stopped him, but barely. He's ruthless, Ben. Utterly without mercy or honor. He's destroyed dozens of worlds, enslaved countless species. Max looked directly into his grandson's eyes. Whatever he's offering you is a lie. The moment he gets what he wants, the Omnitrix, you'll be discarded. Or worse. Maybe, Ben acknowledged. But fighting him seems like suicide. You said it yourself, he's conquered entire worlds. We don't have to fight alone, Max gestured to the communication equipment. I've reached out to old plumber contacts. Help is coming, not officially, but people who owe me favors. And Gwen has developed abilities of her own. As if to demonstrate, Gwen raised her hand, creating a complex pattern of glowing pink energy. Magic? Ben asked skeptically. Anodite energy manipulation, Max corrected. From your grandmother's side of the family. It rivals the power of the Omnitrix in its own way. Ben absorbed this new information with surprise. His cousin, the perpetual thorn in his side, had powers too. So what's your grand plan? He asked. Fight off an alien warlord with some retired space cops and Gwen's magic tricks. We have something Vilgax doesn't, Max said firmly. Knowledge of Earth, home field advantage, and a reason to fight beyond conquest. This is our world, Ben. Our home. The appeal to patriotism didn't move Ben as much as Max clearly hoped it would. Nice speech, Grandpa, but I've seen how our world treats people who are different. The strong dominate the weak, that's the way it works everywhere, even here. And is that the world you want to live in? Max challenged. Where might makes right? Where someone like Vilgax can come along with bigger guns and just take whatever he wants. Ben didn't have a ready answer for that. He'd been using his power to take what he wanted for weeks now. By that logic, wasn't Vilgax just doing the same thing on a larger scale? There's something else you should know, Max continued, seeing Ben's hesitation. The Omnitrix wasn't created as a weapon. Its true purpose was preservation, a Noah's Ark of DNA from species across the galaxy. Azmouth, its creator, designed it to foster understanding between different beings. To literally let someone walk in another species' shoes. Ben looked down at the device on his wrist. Seriously? This thing is supposed to be some kind of alien cultural exchange program? In a manner of speaking, Max nodded. It's about empathy as much as power. That's why it has a time limit, to remind the user that transformation is temporary, but understanding is permanent. The revelation stirred uncomfortable thoughts in Ben's mind. He'd been using the Omnitrix exactly opposite to its intended purpose, to dominate rather than understand, to take rather than preserve. It doesn't change anything, he said finally, though with less conviction than before. Vilgax is coming whether we like his philosophy or not. I need to decide what's best for me. And what about what's best for everyone else? Gwen asked quietly. Your family. Your friends. The whole planet. Ben stood up abruptly. I've heard enough. Thanks for the information, Grandpa. As he turned to leave, Max called after him. Ben, whatever you decide, you're still my grandson. We can still fix this, together. Ben paused at the door, not looking back. Maybe some things can't be fixed. He stepped outside into the cool night air, mind churning with conflicting thoughts. The weight of the decision before him felt suddenly immense, no longer just about his own power, but potentially the fate of an entire world. Back at the factory headquarters, Kevin was waiting with news of his own. "We've got company," he reported as soon as Ben returned. "While you were gone, I picked up communications from a government agency, something called SECT. They're mobilizing to raid this place at dawn." "How much do they know?" Ben asked. "Enough to be dangerous," Kevin grimaced. "They've been tracking the alien tech signatures from our operations. They know about me, about you, and definitely about the Omnitrix. We need to move," Ben decided. "Pack up anything essential." Kevin hesitated. "There's more. I've been monitoring Vilgax's ship. It's accelerated its approach. It'll enter Earth's atmosphere within 6 hours, not 24. He lied, Ben muttered, though he wasn't particularly surprised. Conquering types usually do, Kevin shrugged. "So what's the play, boss? Run? Fight? Take Vilgax's deal?" Ben paced the room, considering their options. Running would only delay the inevitable. Fighting seemed hopeless against Vilgax's superior technology and forces. Taking the deal felt like betrayal, not just of Earth, but of something deeper that Ben couldn't quite articulate. "Neither," he said finally. "We make our own deal." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "Vilgax wants the Omnitrix. The government wants us neutralized. Grandpa wants me to be some kind of hero." Ben held up his wrist, the Omnitrix gleaming under the factory lights. "Everyone wants to control this power or how it's used. And I say we use it to control them instead." Ben's eyes narrowed with determination. "Vilgax thinks I'll be his lieutenant. Fine. Let him land, let him think I'm on board. Meanwhile, we set a trap." Kevin looked skeptical. "A trap for an alien warlord who's conquered multiple planets. The Omnitrix is what he really wants," Ben explained. "And it has powers we haven't fully explored yet. I've been experimenting, there are fail-safes built into it, security measures." "Like what?" "Like this." Ben twisted the dial in a specific pattern, then pressed and held it down. The Omnitrix emitted a high-pitched whine, and holographic symbols appeared above it, alien writing scrolling too fast to read. "What did you do?" Kevin asked, backing away slightly. "Put it in self-destruct mode," Ben said calmly. "We now have 12 hours before it detonates with enough force to take out half the state." Kevin's eyes widened. "Are you insane? Turn it off." "Relax." Ben twisted the dial again, and the whine ceased. "Just a demonstration. But Vilgax doesn't know I can cancel it. That's our leverage." Understanding dawned on Kevin's face. "So we let him land, threaten to blow up the watch unless he gives us what we want, then we negotiate from a position of strength," Ben finished. "Not as his servants, but as equals. We demand our own territory, not just Bellwood, but a significant portion of Earth under our control, with his backing." "And if he calls your bluff?" Ben's expression hardened. "Then it's not a bluff. I'll destroy the Omnitrix before I let him take it from me." Kevin studied his young partner with new respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. "That's cold, Tennyson. I like it." They spent the next few hours preparing. Kevin gathered their most valuable equipment and resources, while Ben practiced cycling through his alien forms, testing the limits of each transformation. As dawn approached, they moved their operation to an abandoned quarry outside town, open ground where they could see Vilgax coming, with enough space for his ship to land. "Sect forces are still focusing on the factory," Kevin reported, checking his modified scanner. They haven't picked up our trail yet. Good, Ben nodded. What about Grandpa and Gwen? On the move. Heading this way, based on their energy signatures. Kevin gave Ben a curious look. You told them about the meeting? No, Ben frowned. But Grandpa has ways of tracking the Omnitrix. They must have figured it out. Problem? Ben considered the question. Having his family show up could complicate the delicate negotiation he was planning. On the other hand, Max's knowledge of Plumber protocols and Vilgax's tactics might prove useful. We'll deal with them when they arrive, he decided. For now, focus on Vilgax. They didn't have to wait long. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, a massive shadow blotted out the stars. Vilgax's ship, the Chimerian Hammer, descended through the clouds, its hull glowing red from atmospheric entry. The vessel was enormous, easily the size of a naval destroyer, with alien architecture that suggested both function and intimidation. It hovered above the quarry floor, engines creating a deafening roar that kicked up dust and debris in all directions. That's bigger than I expected, Kevin shouted over the noise, looking significantly less confident than before. Ben activated the Omnitrix, selecting 4 arms for the added strength and intimidation factor. Stick to the plan, he called back as transformation overtook him. A beam of light shot down from the ship's underside, and within it descended a figure that could only be Vilgax. In person, the alien warlord was even more imposing than on screen, nearly 10 feet tall, with massively enhanced musculature and armor that seemed fused to his green skin. Benjamin Tennyson, Vilgax's voice boomed across the quarry. I see you've chosen to meet me in person. Wise decision. Ben stepped forward, forearms massive red body tensed for action. Let's skip the small talk, Vilgax. I'm here to negotiate, not surrender. Vilgax's eyes narrowed. Negotiate? You misunderstand your position, child. I offered you a place in my empire out of respect for your clever use of the Omnitrix. That offer can be rescinded. I don't think so. Ben raised his wrist, displaying the Omnitrix symbol embedded in forearm's shoulder. I've activated the Omnitrix's self-destruct sequence. You make a move I don't like, and it takes out everything within a 5-mile radius, including your precious device. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vilgax's face. You're bluffing. The self-destruct requires a specific Galvan authorization code. Want to bet your invasion on that? Ben challenged. Azmouth built-in failsafes even he doesn't know about. I found one. A tense silence followed as Vilgax assessed the threat. Finally, he inclined his head slightly. Very well. What are your terms? Simple, Ben replied. I keep the Omnitrix. You get Earth, most of it. Except for territories under my control, which you recognize as sovereign and independent from your empire. And what territories would those be? To start. The entire western United States, Ben stated boldly. Eventually, more. I have ambitions too, Vilgax. The warlord's face split into what might have been a smile. Indeed you do. More than I gave you credit for. He took a step forward. Counteroffer, you retain the Omnitrix and receive North America in its entirety as your domain. In exchange, you acknowledge me as emperor and provide military support when called upon. Ben pretended to consider this, though in truth, the offer exceeded his expectations. And the self-destruct? Will be deactivated once our agreement is formalized, Vilgax nodded toward his ship. I have a treaty prepared aboard the Chimerian Hammer. Shall we discuss the details? Before Ben could respond, the quarry's edge erupted in pink energy. A barrier formed between Vilgax and Ben, pulsing with power. Ben, don't. Gwen's voice called out. She stood atop a rocky outcropping, hands extended and glowing with that same pink energy. Beside her, Grandpa Max aimed what looked like an alien rifle directly at Vilgax. Step away from my grandson, Vilgax, Max shouted, his voice carrying the authority of his plumber days. This ends now. Vilgax turned toward the new threats, seemingly more annoyed than concerned. Tennyson. The years have not been kind to you, old man. Kind enough, Max replied grimly. Ben, whatever deal he's offering is a lie. Come back with us. We can protect you. Ben felt a surge of anger. Protect me? I don't need protection. I'm negotiating the survival of half the country here. He's manipulating you, Gwen insisted, the energy barrier pulsing brighter. Once you're on his ship, he'll take the Omnitrix and kill you. Doubt crept into Ben's mind. Was this another deception? He glanced at Kevin, who had edged closer to the ship's energy beam, his expression calculating. Vilgax's patience clearly wore thin. Enough of these interruptions. He raised a gauntlet hand, and from the ship above, smaller craft began to deploy, drone fighters armed with energy weapons. Destroy the interlopers. Leave the boy. No. Ben shouted, but it was too late. The drones opened fire, their energy blast striking Gwen's barrier. It held for a moment, then began to crack under the barrage. Max returned fire with his plumber weapon, downing one drone in a spectacular explosion. But there were dozens more, and they began to circle around, looking for weak points in the defense. This wasn't part of our deal. Ben rounded on Vilgax. Call them off. There is no deal until you come aboard, Vilgax replied coldly. Your family or your future, Benjamin. Choose. In that moment, something crystallized in Ben's mind. The weeks of using the Omnitrix for personal gain, the thrill of power, the growing empire he and Kevin had built, it all seemed hollow compared to the sight of his family fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. But the alternative, surrendering to Vilgax, becoming his puppet, was equally unthinkable. There's a third option, Ben said quietly, placing his hand over the Omnitrix symbol. Nobody gets what they want. He twisted the dial in the pattern he'd shown Kevin earlier, then pressed and held it down. The high-pitched whine returned, louder this time, and the Omnitrix began to pulse with energy. Self-destruct sequence initiated, announced a mechanical voice from the device. Detonation in T-minus 60 seconds. Vilgax's eyes widened in genuine alarm. What have you done, foolish child? Something unpredictable, Ben replied, feeling strangely calm. Isn't that what makes humans so dangerous? Chaos erupted around them. Vilgax lunged for Ben's wrist, but forearm strength allowed him to dodge the attack. The warlord bellowed orders to his ship, and the tractor beam began to pulse more intensely. Ben! Kevin shouted from the edge of the beam. This wasn't the plan. Plans change, Ben called back. Get Gwen and Grandpa out of here. Now. Kevin hesitated only briefly before nodding. He sprinted toward the outcropping where the Tennysons were still fighting off drones, his hands absorbing energy from anything electronic he passed. 45 seconds to detonation, the Omnitrix announced dispassionately. Vilgax attacked again, this time connecting with a powerful blow that sent Ben flying backward. Deactivated, the warlord demanded, advancing menacingly. Or I will remove your arm to save the device. Ben climbed to his feet, spitting blood. You can try. Meanwhile, Kevin had reached Gwen and Max. Using his absorbed energy, he created an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled the nearby drones. We need to go, he shouted at them. Ben's activated the Omnitrix's self-destruct for real this time. What? Gwen's concentration broke, the energy barrier dissipating. We have to stop him. No time, Kevin grabbed her arm. That thing's going to take out everything within miles of here. We need distance, now. Max looked torn, glancing between the retreating path and his grandson locked in combat with Vilgax. I won't leave him. 30 seconds to detonation. Ben and Vilgax grappled at the center of the quarry, a titanic struggle between forearm strength and the warlord's enhanced physiology. Despite his alien form's power, Ben found himself outmatched. Vilgax was stronger, faster, more experienced. A devastating punch knocked Ben to the ground, the Omnitrix symbol flickering as the transformation threatened to time out. 20 seconds to detonation. Vilgax planted a massive foot on Ben's chest, pinning him. Last chance, human. Deactivate the self-destruct. Ben looked past Vilgax, seeing his family and Kevin still at the quarry's edge, refusing to retreat despite the danger. The sight steeled his resolve. No, he gasped. Some prices are too high. Even for power. 10 seconds to detonation. Vilgax roared in frustration, raising his fist for a killing blow. A blast of pink energy struck him from behind, powerful enough to stagger even his massive frame. Gwen stood with hands extended, her entire body glowing with anodite power. "Get away from my cousin, you intergalactic freak," she shouted, firing another energy burst. Max appeared beside Ben, helping him to his feet. "We need to go, now." 5 seconds. Too late, Ben shook his head. "I'm sorry, Grandpa. For everything." 4. Kevin skidded to a stop beside them, his body partially transformed with materials he'd absorbed along the way, metal arms, stone legs. "Can you stop it?" 3. "No," Ben admitted. "Once it starts, it can't be stopped." 2. Vilgax recovered from Gwen's attack, his face contorted with rage. He lunged toward the Omnitrix, desperation evident in every movement. 1. Ben closed his eyes, bracing for oblivion. 0. The Omnitrix emitted a final high-pitched whine, then went silent. The symbol stopped pulsing and returned to its standard green color. Ben opened his eyes in confusion. "What, function override accepted," announced the Omnitrix in a new, more sophisticated voice. "Detonation cancelled. Greetings, Max Tennyson, Plumber ID XJ77. Voice print authentication confirmed." Everyone, including Vilgax, froze in shock. "Grandpa?" Ben looked at Max in confusion. Max appeared equally surprised. "I didn't know I could do that." "You can't," came a new voice from above them. All eyes turned upward as a small, hovering platform descended from the sky. On it stood a diminutive gray alien with large eyes and a distinctly frog-like appearance. Despite his small stature, he carried himself with unmistakable authority. "Azmouth," Vilgax growled, recognition and hatred evident in his voice. "Creator of the Omnitrix," Max explained quietly to Ben. The small alien regarded them all with an expression of profound disappointment. "I leave my greatest creation unattended for a few decades, and this is what happens. A child using it for petty crime? A warlord trying to use it as a weapon of mass destruction? Disgraceful, all of you. I don't answer to you, Azmouth," Vilgax snarled. "The Omnitrix will be mine." Azmouth raised a tiny hand, and from his platform shot a beam of energy that encased Vilgax in a containment field. The warlord struggled against it but could not break free. "You'll answer to the Galactic Code Authority for violating the non-interference protocols regarding Earth," Azmouth said calmly. Again. He turned his attention to Ben, who had reverted to human form as the Omnitrix timed out. "As for you, Benjamin Tennyson. I've been watching your exploits with my device. I must say, I'm deeply disappointed." Ben found himself unable to meet the creator's gaze. "Yeah, well, join the club. The Omnitrix was created to foster understanding between species, to preserve life, to bridge divides," Azmouth continued. "You've used it to intimidate, to steal, to build a criminal enterprise. Is that really the legacy you wish to create?" Put that way, Ben's actions over the past week seemed increasingly indefensible. The thrill of power had blinded him to the responsibility that came with it, a responsibility he'd rejected from the beginning. "I didn't ask for this thing to attach itself to me," Ben said defensively. And yet it did, Azmouth replied. The Omnitrix chose you, Benjamin. Out of all the beings on this planet, it bonded with you. I've been trying to understand why. Maybe it made a mistake, Ben muttered. The Omnitrix doesn't make mistakes, Azmouth said firmly. Which means there must be something within you, something worthy, that my creation recognized, even if you haven't recognized it yourself. Before Ben could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. Above, Vilgax's ship had begun charging its main weapon, a massive cannon aimed directly at the quarry floor. Automated defense protocols, Vilgax explained with malicious satisfaction. If I am captured or incapacitated, the Chimerian hammer is programmed to obliterate all targets in the vicinity. Including me, if necessary. Azmouth sighed. Predictably dramatic, as always. The ship's cannon glowed with gathering energy, a sphere of destructive force forming at its tip. We need to move. Kevin shouted, already backing away. Azmouth remained calm. The ship's firepower is sufficient to vaporize everything within a 3-mile radius. There's nowhere to run. Ben looked at the Omnitrix on his wrist, then at his family, then at Kevin, all facing annihilation because of choices he had made. Because he'd been selfish, reckless, drunk on power. For weeks, he'd used the Omnitrix to take whatever he wanted. Now, facing death, he realized there was only one thing he truly wanted, for the people he cared about to survive. Can the Omnitrix stop this? He asked Azmouth desperately. The Creator studied him with those large, ancient eyes. The Omnitrix? No. But the wielder? Perhaps. Ben understood. This wasn't about which alien form to use or what power to deploy. It was about making a choice, the kind of choice that defined who he really was. I'll hold them off, Ben decided, activating the Omnitrix one more time. The rest of you get as far away as possible. Ben, no. Gwen protested. We're not leaving you. For once, don't argue with me, dweeb, Ben managed a smile. Grandpa, get her out of here. Kevin, thanks for showing me what real power looks like. Kevin's expression was unreadable, but he nodded once before turning to help Max with Gwen. As they retreated, Ben faced the ship above, cycling through the Omnitrix's options one last time. None of his current aliens seemed powerful enough to stop a ship-based energy cannon. But maybe that wasn't the point. Ben turned to Azmouth, who still hadn't moved from his platform. You said the Omnitrix was made to bridge divides, to foster understanding. Does that work both ways? Azmouth raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Can it help others understand me? My intentions? A slow smile spread across the Creator's face. Now you're asking the right questions, Benjamin Tennyson. The ship's cannon reached full charge, the energy sphere now blindingly bright. In seconds, it would release devastation upon them all. Ben took a deep breath and pressed the Omnitrix against his chest, over his heart. Omnitrix, he spoke clearly, broadcast emotional state. Full spectrum, maximum range. The device beeped once in acknowledgement. Function activated. Warning, psycho-emotional broadcast at this scale may cause temporary incapacitation to user. Do it, Ben commanded. The Omnitrix glowed brightly, and then, everything changed. A wave of energy erupted from Ben's position, not destructive but communicative. It carried not radiation or force, but something more fundamental, pure, unfiltered human emotion. His remorse for his actions. His fear for his family's safety. His desperate wish to protect them, even at the cost of his own life. The wave struck the ship above, interfacing with its systems on a level beyond mere technology. The AI controlling the automated defense protocols received not commands or countermeasures, but understanding, the understanding that this small human below valued life, valued connection, valued something beyond power. The cannon's charge dissipated, the energy sphere collapsing in on itself as the ship's systems recalibrated. On the ground, Ben collapsed to his knees, the strain of the emotional broadcast leaving him drained and vulnerable. But alive. They were all still alive. Azmouth approached, stepping off his platform to stand before Ben. Despite being barely a foot tall, his presence was commanding. An interesting solution, the creator noted. Using the Omnitrix's empathic capabilities rather than its transformative powers. Few wielders discover that function. Ben looked up weakly. It worked. For now, Azmouth nodded. The ship's defensive protocols have been temporarily overridden by your emotional imprint. It recognized your genuine desire to protect rather than destroy, something its programming wasn't designed to counter. Vilgax, still trapped in the containment field, snarled with rage. This changes nothing. The Omnitrix will be mine, even if I must return with an entire armada. Azmouth turned to the warlord with an expression of weary patience. Your obsession blinds you to the truth, Vilgax. The Omnitrix's true power was never in its ability to transform its user, but in its ability to transform understanding. He gestured to Ben. This child, for all his mistakes, grasped that in a moment of crisis. You never have. Ben struggled to his feet as his family and Kevin returned, cautiously approaching now that the immediate threat had passed. What happens now? He asked, looking from Azmouth to Vilgax to his grandfather. Now, Azmouth said, you make another choice, Benjamin Tennyson. Perhaps the most important one yet. Chapter 3, Throne of Aliens, the most important choice yet, huh? Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, still pulsing softly on his wrist after the emotional broadcast that had saved them all. Seems like I've been making nothing but bad ones lately. Azmouth regarded him with those ancient, knowing eyes. Choices define us, Benjamin Tennyson. Not powers or abilities or technological advantages. He gestured around at the quarry, at Vilgax still trapped in a containment field, at the massive ship hovering above, at Ben's family and Kevin watching from a distance. This moment is the convergence of many choices, good and bad. What matters now is what you choose next. The weight of the Creator's word settled on Ben's shoulders like a physical thing. For weeks, he'd been drunk on power, building his little empire in Bellwood, taking whatever he wanted simply because he could. Now, faced with the consequences, nearly getting everyone killed, almost helping an alien warlord conquer Earth, the thrill of that power felt hollow. I'm listening, Ben said quietly. Azmouth nodded. 3 paths lie before you. First, I can remove the Omnitrix, returning you to a normal human existence. Your criminal activities will require answering to Earth authorities, but the threat to the galaxy ends. And the second option? Ben asked, though he had a feeling he knew. You continue as you have been, Azmouth confirmed. I cannot forcibly remove the Omnitrix without risking harm to you. If you choose this path, however, know that you will face opposition not just from Earth, but from across the galaxy. The power you wield makes you a target for beings far more dangerous than Vilgax. Ben glanced at his family, seeing the hope and fear warring in their expressions. And the third option? You keep the Omnitrix, Azmouth said, but commit to using it as it was intended, to foster understanding, to protect life, to bridge divides between species. This path is the hardest, requiring you to make amends for your actions and rebuild trust with those you've harmed. Kevin snorted from where he stood. Sounds like a sucker's deal to me. Nobody asked you, Kevin, Gwen snapped. Ben ignored them both, considering Azmouth's words. The first option felt like surrender, a return to being ordinary, powerless Ben Tennyson. The second promised continued power but at the cost of becoming a hunted criminal, forever looking over his shoulder. The third. If I choose the third path, Ben asked slowly, what happens to Vilgax? To the people I've hurt in Bellwood? Do I just get a free pass because I say I'm sorry? There is no free pass, Azmouth replied. Actions have consequences. Vilgax will face the judgment of the Galactic Code Authority. As for your actions on Earth, making amends means facing responsibility, not escaping it. And what about him? Ben nodded toward Kevin. Kevin stiffened, his hands clenching at his sides. Energy crackled briefly around his fingers. He'd been absorbing power throughout the confrontation, preparing for whatever might come next. Mr. Levin's path is his own to choose, Azmouth said simply. A tense silence fell over the quarry, broken only by the occasional spark from Vilgax's containment field as the warlord tested its limits. The Chimerian hammer still loomed above them, its weapons systems temporarily pacified by Ben's emotional broadcast but still a deadly threat. Ben walked a few paces away, needing space to think. The past weeks played through his mind like a movie, the rush of first discovering the Omnitrix, the thrill of getting revenge on his bullies, the intoxicating feeling of power as he built his criminal operation with Kevin. He'd felt important, respected, feared. But he'd also felt alone. Disconnected. The more power he'd accumulated, the more isolated he'd become, even from himself. Ben turned back to face the others. I need to fix what I broke, he said finally. I choose the third option. Relief washed over Grandpa Max's weathered face. Gwen smiled faintly, though wariness remained in her eyes. Kevin's expression darkened into something unreadable. Azmouth nodded, as though he'd expected this answer all along. A wise choice, though not an easy one. Nothing worth doing ever is, right? Ben attempted a smile, though it felt strange on his face after weeks of scowls and smirks. Before Azmouth could respond, a metallic groan echoed from above. The Chimerian hammer's systems were reactivating, the emotional override beginning to fade. We have a more immediate problem, Max pointed out, eyeing the massive ship. That vessel has enough firepower to level half the state. Even with Vilgax contained, its automated systems are a threat. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. Can this thing interface with Vilgax's ship? Take control of it somehow? Azmouth shook his head. The Omnitrix is not designed for technological control. Its interface capabilities are limited to biological systems and specific Galvan security protocols. Then we need to disable it from the inside, Ben decided. Grandpa, you know alien tech better than any of us. If I can get you aboard, could you shut it down? Max considered this, stroking his chin. Possibly. Chimerian systems are complex, but not unfamiliar to me. The challenge would be reaching the command center without triggering security protocols. Leave that to me, Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his available aliens. Time to be a hero for once. As he raised his hand to slam down on the interface, Kevin stepped forward. Hold up, Tennyson. You're not seriously buying into this redemption crap, are you? Ben paused. It's the right thing to do, Kevin. The right thing? Kevin laughed, but there was no humor in it. We were building something real. Territory, respect, power, everything we talked about. And you're throwing it away because some frog alien gave you a guilt trip? I'm not throwing anything away, Ben replied. I'm choosing a different kind of power. Kevin's face contorted with anger and betrayal. We had a deal. Yeah, we did, Ben acknowledged. And I'm breaking it. Sorry, Kevin. For a moment, it seemed Kevin might attack. Energy crackled around his clenched fists, his body partially transmuted from previous absorptions, one arm crystalline like Diamond Head, the other metallic and gleaming. But instead, he backed away slowly. You'll regret this, Tennyson, he said quietly. Nobody walks away from Kevin Levin. Before anyone could stop him, Kevin placed his hands on the ground, absorbing the stone beneath his feet. His body transformed fully, becoming a humanoid figure of living rock. With unexpected speed, he leaped away, scaling the quarry wall in seconds and disappearing over the ridge. Should we go after him? Gwen asked, pink energy swirling around her hands. Later, Max decided. The ship is the priority now. Ben nodded, returning his attention to the Omnitrix. This time, he selected Stinkfly, an insectoid alien with 4 eyes, 4 wings, and the ability to fly at high speeds. Perfect for reaching the ship quickly. The familiar green light enveloped him, and seconds later, the transformed Ben hovered above the ground on buzzing wings. "Ugh, I forgot how bad this one smells," he complained, his voice now high and nasal. "Grab on, Grandpa. Gwen, you stay here with Azmouth and keep an eye on Vilgax." "Actually," Azmouth interrupted, "I believe I can be of more assistance aboard the ship. My knowledge of Chimerian systems exceeds even that of an experienced plumber." "Fine," Ben extended 2 of his 4 arms. "Double passenger flight coming up." Max and Azmouth held tight as Ben's wings buzzed with increased intensity, lifting them into the air toward the Chimerian hammer's underside. The ship loomed larger as they approached, its alien architecture both beautiful and menacing. There, Max pointed to a maintenance hatch near one of the smaller engine arrays. "Secondary access port. Less likely to be monitored." Ben maneuvered toward the indicated hatch, his insectoid body proving surprisingly agile even with passengers. As they reached the ship's hull, Max pulled a small device from his pocket, a plumber tool that interfaced with the hatch's security system. "Still got a few tricks up my sleeve," he grinned as the hatch slid open with a soft hiss. The interior of the Chimerian hammer was a maze of dark corridors lit by pulsing red lights. Strange organic-looking technology lined the walls, giving the impression that the ship was as much alive as it was machine. Ben reverted to human form once they were inside. Stinkfly was too large and cumbersome for the narrow passages, and the Omnitrix needed to recharge anyway. "Which way to the command center?" he whispered. Azmouth closed his eyes briefly, seeming to sense something beyond normal perception. "The primary systems node is 17 levels up, in the central column. However, the security protocols will detect our presence long before we reach it. So we need a distraction," Ben concluded. "Or a more direct approach," Max suggested, examining a nearby terminal. "Vilgax's ships are designed around a central power core. If we can reach the engine room, we might be able to initiate a controlled shutdown." "That's still several levels below us," Azmouth pointed out. "And heavily guarded by automated defense systems." Ben checked the Omnitrix, still red, still recharging. "We'll have to do this the old-fashioned way until this thing powers up again." "I was hoping you'd say that," Max smiled, pulling what looked like a compact tool kit from his back pocket. Within seconds, he'd assembled a small but powerful-looking energy pistol. "Never leave home without it." They moved cautiously through the corridors, Max taking point with his weapon ready. Azmouth rode on Ben's shoulder, occasionally providing directions in hushed tones. The ship seemed eerily empty of living crew, operated instead by automated systems and robotic drones. "Where is everyone?" Ben whispered after they'd descended 3 levels without encountering resistance. "Vilgax doesn't trust organic crews," Azmouth explained. "Too prone to error, compassion, or rebellion. His vessels are primarily automated, with only a skeleton crew of his most loyal commanders." "And where are they?" "Likely in stasis during his capture." "Standard protocol." They reached a junction where the corridor split in 3 directions. Azmouth indicated the leftmost path. The maintenance shaft through there should lead directly to the lower engineering levels. As they approached the doorway, a metallic whirring sound echoed from around the corner. Max gestured for them to take cover as a patrol drone rolled into view, a spherical robot equipped with multiple sensors and what appeared to be energy weapons. "Stay still," Max breathed. "Movement triggers their targeting systems." The drone paused at the junction, its sensor array rotating slowly as it scanned each corridor. For a heart-stopping moment, its primary eye seemed to focus directly on their hiding spot. Then, apparently satisfied, it continued down the rightmost passage. Ben released the breath he'd been holding. "That was close." "Too close," Azmouth agreed. "The ship is increasing security protocols. It senses Vilgax's continued absence." They proceeded more cautiously, Max disabling security measures as they encountered them. The maintenance shaft proved to be a narrow, vertical tube requiring them to descend via service ladder. Ben's arms ached from the climb, but he pressed on, following Max's lead. At last, they reached a massive chamber that hummed with power, the engine room. At its center floated a pulsing orb of energy contained within multiple layers of force fields, feeding power to the ship's systems through glowing conduits. The primary reactor, Azmouth identified it. Quantum fusion, highly unstable. A controlled shutdown is possible, but will require precise timing. Max approached a control terminal, examining its alien interface. I recognize some of these systems from my Plumber days, but much of this is beyond my experience. Allow me. Azmouth hopped from Ben's shoulder onto the terminal, his tiny fingers moving with incredible speed across the controls. Vilgax has upgraded his security protocols since our last encounter, but the fundamental architecture remains Chimerian in origin. As Azmouth worked, Ben kept watch at the entrance, the Omnitrix on his wrist gradually shifting from red to green as it recharged. The vastness of the engine room made him feel small and vulnerable, a child playing at being a hero in a game with galaxy-level stakes. Had he really thought he could control this kind of power? Build an empire with technology he barely understood? The past week seemed increasingly like a fever dream, a power-drunk delusion. Almost there, Azmouth announced, still working furiously. The shutdown sequence requires authentication from 3 separate systems. I've bypassed 2, but the third, an explosion rocked the chamber as the main entrance blew inward. Through the smoke and debris marched a squadron of combat drones, their weapons trained directly on the intruders. Unauthorized presence detected, announced a mechanical voice. Security protocols activated. Eliminate intruders. Ben, now would be a good time for some alien assistance. Max called, diving behind a console as energy blasts tore through the space where he'd been standing. The Omnitrix glowed green, fully recharged. Ben slammed his hand down on the interface, selecting Diamond Head for his durability against energy weapons. The transformation washed over him, crystal replacing flesh, strength flowing into his limbs. He stepped forward, forming his arms into shields to deflect the incoming fire. "Get behind me," he shouted to Max and Azmouth. "And keep working on that shutdown." The drones advanced, adjusting their tactics to surround Ben. He created crystal barriers for additional cover, then went on the offensive, launching diamond shards that pierced through metallic hulls with satisfying precision. 2 drones fell, then 3, but more kept coming. They were learning, adapting to his attacks, focusing fire on the crystal formations to overwhelm his defenses. "Azmouth!" Ben called, grunting as a blast struck his shoulder, cracking the crystal surface. "How much longer?" "The final system is locked down," the Galvan replied, frustration evident in his voice. "Someone has manually overridden the authentication protocols from the command center." "Someone?" Max questioned. "I thought the crew was in stasis." A new voice echoed through the chamber, broadcast through the ship's communication system. "Did you really think it would be that easy, Tennyson?" Ben's blood ran cold despite his crystalline form. "Kevin." "Surprised?" Kevin's voice dripped with smug satisfaction. "While you were playing hero, I found another way aboard. Turns out Vilgax's ship has some pretty sweet tech that responds really well to my particular talents." "Kevin, listen to me," Ben tried, deflecting another barrage of drone fire. "This ship has enough firepower to kill millions of people. You don't want that on your conscience." "My conscience?" Kevin laughed, the sound harsh and electronic through the ship's speakers. "That's rich coming from you. You were fine with stepping on anyone who got in your way until about 20 minutes ago. What changed, Tennyson? Got scared when the stakes got real?" "I realized there are more important things than power," Ben answered honestly, continuing to fight even as they talked. "Like not getting everyone killed." "Noble," Kevin sneered. "But I'm not buying your sudden hero act. See, I've made a better deal, with the ship itself. Azmouth looked up sharply from the terminal. He's interfacing directly with the Chimerian Hammer's systems. His absorption abilities allow him to meld with the technology. Is that bad? Max asked, firing his energy pistol at a drone attempting to flank them. Catastrophically so, Azmouth confirmed. The ship's AI is designed for conquest. If it accepts Kevin as a compatible controller, the lights in the engine room suddenly shifted from red to a pulsing blue, the same electric blue that characterized Kevin's energy absorption powers. Too late, Kevin's voice resonated throughout the chamber, now seeming to come from the ship itself. We're already connected. And guess what? This baby has some opinions about her former captain. Vilgax was thinking too small, just like you were, Ben. The remaining drones stood down, their weapons powering off as they retreated to the walls. Kevin, Ben tried again, whatever you're planning, is already in motion, Kevin interrupted. The Chimerian Hammer recognizes me as her new commander. All systems online, all weapons active. His voice took on a harder edge. Including the planet cracker cannon. Vilgax never had the guts to use it. I don't have that problem. Ben exchanged alarmed glances with Max and Azmouth. Planet cracker. A quantum disruption device, Azmouth explained grimly. Capable of destabilizing a planet's core, causing it to collapse in on itself. It's forbidden technology, banned by the Galactic Code for centuries. And it's aimed right at Bellwood, Kevin announced with perverse glee. Ground zero for my new empire. Once I demonstrate what happens to cities that defy me, the rest of the planet will fall in line pretty quickly. Ben's mind raced. Kevin had always been unstable, but this was beyond anything he'd anticipated. The teenager wasn't just seeking power or respect anymore, he was embracing genuine villainy. We need to get to the command center, Ben decided, his crystalline form shifting back to human as the Omnitrix timed out. Now. Impossible, Azmouth shook his head. Kevin controls all internal systems. Every door, every corridor, every transport tube is under his command. Then we make our own path, Ben replied, examining the Omnitrix as it began its recharge cycle. Straight up. Max caught his meaning immediately. The central column. If we can breach the ceiling here, we could climb directly to the command levels. With what? Azmouth demanded. The Omnitrix needs time to recharge, and even your Plumber weapon isn't powerful enough to cut through Chimerian hull material. Ben looked around the engine room, his gaze settling on the pulsing energy core. We don't need to cut through it. We just need to redirect some of that power. Understanding dawned on Max's face. The emergency venting systems. If we overload them, we can create a controlled explosion upward, Ben finished. Like punching a hole through the floors above us. That's insane, Azmouth protested. The structural damage could destabilize the entire ship. Got a better idea? Ben challenged. When Azmouth didn't respond, he continued, didn't think so. Grandpa, can you rig the venting systems? Max was already moving toward a secondary control panel. On it. But I'll need about 5 minutes to reconfigure the safety protocols. You've got 2, Ben replied, checking the Omnitrix. Kevin's not waiting around. As if to confirm his words, the ship rumbled ominously, the deck plates vibrating beneath their feet. Through the viewport on the far wall, they could see the landscape below beginning to shrink as the Chimerian Hammer gained altitude. He's positioning for optimal firing range, Azmouth realized. We have less time than we thought. Max worked furiously at the control panel, his plumber training evident in the confident way he navigated the alien systems. Ben stood guard, the Omnitrix slowly shifting from red to yellow as it recharged. Almost there, Max muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. The system's fighting me, trying to reroute around my commands. Kevin's influence is embedded deep. Ben glanced nervously at the energy core. Will it work? It'll work, Max assured him. But the explosion will be significant. We'll need immediate cover. Leave that to me, Ben replied, watching the Omnitrix intently. Just a little more time. The ship lurched again, this time accompanied by a mechanical groaning that echoed throughout the chamber. Weapons systems engaging, Kevin's voice announced. Target acquired, Bellwood, population 37,000. Soon to be 0. Now, Grandpa. Ben shouted. Max slammed his fist on the final command key. Fire in the hole. The energy core pulsed violently, emergency sirens blaring as power surged through rerouted conduits. A focused beam of pure energy shot upward, striking the ceiling with catastrophic force. Metal, circuitry, and structural supports vaporized instantly, the beam continuing upward through floor after floor of the massive ship. The backlash was immediate and devastating. The engine room shook, equipment exploding around them as systems overloaded. The beam cut off after a few seconds, leaving a smoking, molten-edged hole approximately 10 feet in diameter that extended up through multiple decks. That's our exit. Ben pointed, the Omnitrix finally glowing green. Hang on. He activated the device, transforming into a new alien, a ghost-like being with a single eye and tentacle-like appendages. Ghost Freak, he announced in a chilling, echoing voice. Quickly, he wrapped his tentacles around Max and Azmouth, then phased all three of them upward through the newly created shaft. The intangibility made the journey smooth despite the jagged, superheated edges of the breach. They passed through 6 levels, each revealing glimpses of different ship systems, weapons arrays, drone maintenance bays, what appeared to be a prison block. Finally, they emerged into a vast, darkened chamber dominated by a central platform surrounded by holographic displays. The command center, Azmouth confirmed as Ben set them down and reverted to human form. The space was bathed in pulsing blue light, the same energy that had characterized Kevin's absorption powers. At the center of the platform stood Kevin himself, or what Kevin had become. His body had transformed beyond any previous absorption. Metal, circuitry, and alien technology had merged with his human form, creating a cyborg-like entity. Blue energy coursed through visible conduits in his arms and chest, his eyes glowing with the same power. Welcome aboard, Kevin greeted them, his voice resonating with mechanical overtones. Just in time for the show. Ben stepped forward, positioning himself between Kevin and the others. There's not going to be any show, Kevin. We're shutting this down, now. You still don't get it, do you? Kevin spread his arms, the technology in the room responding to his movements as if it were an extension of his body. I'm not just controlling the ship anymore. I am the ship. The Chimerian hammer and I are one. Displays around the chamber activated, showing real-time images of Bellwood below. The weapon systems were locked on, energy readings climbing toward critical levels. Think, Kevin. Ben pleaded. That's your hometown too. There are innocent people down there. Collateral damage, Kevin replied dismissively. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Isn't that what you said when we started collecting protection money from those businesses? The accusation hit home. Ben had justified his own criminal activities with similar rationalizations, minimizing the harm, focusing on the power and respect he gained. You're right, Ben admitted. I said those things. I did those things. And I was wrong. He took another step forward. But this is different. This is mass murder, Kevin. It's a statement, Kevin corrected him. And statements need to be dramatic to be effective. In 5 minutes, Bellwood ceases to exist. Then I contact the world's governments and inform them of the new management structure. Azmouth moved to a secondary console, examining its readings. The weapon is charging. At this rate, it will reach firing capacity in approximately 4 minutes, 17 seconds. We need to disconnect Kevin from the ship's systems, Max whispered to Ben. If he's truly melded with the technology, a massive electromagnetic pulse might disrupt the connection. And how do we generate that? Ben whispered back. We don't need to, Azmouth interjected quietly. The Omnitrix can do it. Both Ben and Max looked at the diminutive alien in surprise. The Omnitrix contains safeguards against technological manipulation, Azmouth explained. A secondary function designed to protect its user from technological assimilation or control. If activated, it generates a pulse that severs artificial connections to biological entities. Why didn't you mention this before? Ben demanded. Because activating it requires unlocking master control, Azmouth replied grimly. Something I swore never to do except in the direst circumstances. I'd say imminent planetary destruction qualifies, Max pointed out. Azmouth nodded slowly. Indeed. But Benjamin must understand what this means. Master control removes the transformation time limits. It grants access to all alien DNA in the Omnitrix's database, not just the 10 currently available to you. It is, in essence, the full power of the Omnitrix unleashed. Ben understood the unspoken warning. The Creator was offering him unprecedented power, the very thing that had corrupted him before. I won't misuse it, Ben promised, looking Azmouth directly in the eyes. Not again. Azmouth held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. Place your hand on the Omnitrix faceplate. Ben did as instructed. Azmouth approached, then placed his tiny hands on the device. He spoke in a language Ben didn't recognize, presumably Galvan, and the Omnitrix responded with a series of beeps and clicks. Omnitrix Master Control activated, announced the device in a more sophisticated voice than Ben had heard before. Full access granted to user, Benjamin Tennyson. A wave of knowledge flooded Ben's mind, hundreds, perhaps thousands of alien forms, each with unique abilities and characteristics. The sheer volume of information was overwhelming, but somehow his consciousness sorted through it, cataloging possibilities at incredible speed. Wow, Ben breathed, the potential of what he now commanded dawning on him. Ben, Max placed a hand on his shoulder. Focus. Kevin. The weapon. The reminder snapped Ben back to reality. Kevin was watching them with suspicious interest, his merged form still channeling power to the planet cracker cannon. Whatever you're planning won't work, Kevin called out, the displays showing the weapon at 70% charge. The connection between me and the ship is beyond your understanding. It's quantum-level integration. Maybe so, Ben replied, newfound confidence in his voice. But I bet it still runs on electricity. With that, Ben transformed, not with the usual elaborate motion, but with a mere thought. Green light flashed, and where Ben had stood now hovered a being made of living electricity. Buzz Shock, the new alien announced in a high-pitched, crackling voice. Let's see how your systems handle a power surge. Before Kevin could react, Buzzshock launched himself into the nearest console, his electrical form merging with the ship's power grid. Energy coursed through circuitry, following paths and connections at incredible speed. Kevin screamed as the electrical entity that was Ben invaded the very systems he had merged with. It was like a viral infection, spreading through the technological components that had become part of Kevin's body. Get out of my head. Kevin roared, trying to purge the intruder from his systems. But Buzzshock was everywhere at once, overwhelming firewalls and security protocols, finding the quantum connections that linked Kevin's biological components to the ship's technology. From the outside, Max and Azmouth watched as Kevin convulsed, blue energy warring with green across the cyborg-like body he'd created for himself. Display screens flickered wildly, showing fragmented images and corrupted data as the two beings battled for control of the ship. The weapon charge is still increasing, Azmouth noted with concern. Currently at 85%. Ben is slowing it but not stopping it. Can we help him? Max asked. Not directly, Azmouth shook his head. But perhaps. He moved to a tertiary console, one seemingly unaffected by the electrical battle raging through the main systems. If I can isolate the weapon controls from the rest of the network. Inside the ship's systems, Ben was fighting the strangest battle of his life. As Buzzshock, he existed as pure electrical energy, able to sense and interact with data and power flows directly. He could feel Kevin's consciousness throughout the network, angry, chaotic, but undeniably powerful. "You can't beat me here, Tennyson." Kevin's voice echoed through the digital realm. "This is my domain now." "You forgot one thing, Kevin," Ben replied, his electrical form gathering power from the ship's reserves. "I adapt faster than you." With a massive surge, Buzzshock channeled energy directly into the connections linking Kevin to the ship. Not to destroy, but to overload, to create so much feedback that the biological components of Kevin's body would reflexively disconnect to save themselves. Kevin screamed again, this time in genuine pain. The merged sections of his body began to separate, metal and circuitry pulling away from flesh as self-preservation instincts overrode his conscious control. On the command platform, Kevin's physical form collapsed to his knees, parts of his technological enhancements falling away like a shedding skin. Blue energy still crackled around him, but weaker, more sporadic. Buzzshock emerged from the system, reforming into his electrical humanoid shape before shifting back to human Ben with a mere thought, the master control making transformations effortless and instantaneous. "It's over, Kevin," Ben said firmly, approaching his former partner. "Disconnect from the weapon systems. Now." Kevin looked up, his face contorted with rage and pain. Half of his features remained merged with technology, one eye glowing blue with residual energy. "You think it's that easy? You think you can just switch sides and play hero, and everything works out?" "No," Ben shook his head. "I know it's not easy. I know I've got a lot to make up for. But this isn't the way forward, not for you, not for me, not for anyone." "Touching," Kevin sneered. "But you're too late anyway." He gestured to the main display, which showed the planet cracker at 98% charge. "The targeting systems are locked. The firing sequence is automatic once it reaches full capacity. In approximately 30 seconds, Bellwood becomes a cautionary tale." "Not if I can help it," Ben replied, mentally cycling through his newly available alien forms. He needed something that could disrupt the weapon directly. "Wait," Azmouth called out, still working at the tertiary console. "The weapon's targeting system has a physical component, an external array on the ship's ventral surface. If destroyed, the energy discharge would be harmless, dispersed into the upper atmosphere." Ben nodded. "On it." With another effortless transformation, Ben became a new alien, a sleek, manta ray-like being with incredible flight capabilities. "Jet Ray," he announced, his voice now raspy and high-pitched. "Grandpa, watch Kevin. I'm going outside." Before anyone could respond, Jet Ray shot toward the nearest viewport, phasing through the seemingly solid material and emerging into open air. The Chimerian hammer hovered high above Bellwood, its massive bulk blocking out the sun across much of the city below. Jet Ray dove beneath the ship, scanning for the targeting array Azmouth had mentioned. The ventral surface was a complex landscape of weapons, sensors, and technological components alien to Earth. But one structure stood out, a dish-like protrusion glowing with the same ominous energy as the planet cracker cannon. "Found you," Jet Ray muttered, diving toward the array. As he approached, defensive turrets activated automatically, tracking his movement and opening fire. Jet Ray's natural agility allowed him to weave between energy blasts, performing aerial maneuvers that would have been impossible for any Earth aircraft. Drawing closer to the targeting array, he saw it was protected by a force field, shimmering and nearly invisible, but definitely there. Energy weapons wouldn't penetrate it, and physical strength might not be enough either. Ben needed a different approach. With the master control active, he transformed mid-flight, Jet Ray's form dissolving into green light only to be replaced by a new alien, a crystalline being similar to Diamond Head, but with a more sophisticated, almost technological appearance. "Chroma Stone," the new form announced as he continued his trajectory toward the array. The defensive turrets adjusted, firing more intensely at the approaching threat. But instead of dodging, Chromastone absorbed the energy blasts, his crystalline body glowing brighter with each hit. Thanks for the power-up, he called to the automated defenses. Just what I needed. When he reached the force field, Chromastone channeled all the absorbed energy into his hands, creating a concentrated beam that struck the protective barrier. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, the force field collapsed. The targeting array lay exposed, its components already vibrating with the imminent discharge of the planet cracker cannon. Chromastone landed on its surface, placing both hands directly on the primary emitter. "Let's see if I can redirect this," he muttered, his crystalline body beginning to glow with internal energy. Inside the command center, alarms blared as the weapon reached 100% charge. Kevin, despite his weakened state, laughed triumphantly. "Too late," he crowed. "Nothing can stop it now." The main display showed the cannon powering up for discharge, energy gathering at its focal point. But instead of firing downward toward Bellwood, the energy suddenly diverted, flowing into the targeting array where Ben had positioned himself. "What's happening?" Max demanded, watching the readings fluctuate wildly. "Benjamin is absorbing and redirecting the energy," Azmouth explained, his tone mixing concern with admiration. Chromastone species can channel virtually unlimited quantities of energy through their crystalline matrix. He's attempting to divert the weapon's discharge away from Earth. Outside, Ben strained under the incredible power flowing into him. Chromastone's body glowed brighter and brighter, soon becoming painful to look at directly. The energy of the planet cracker cannon was beyond anything this form had absorbed before, pushing him to his absolute limits. "Too much," Ben gasped, feeling his crystalline structure beginning to crack under the strain. "Need to release it." With a supreme effort, he directed his body upward, away from Earth, and released all the accumulated energy in one massive burst. The beam shot into space, so powerful it parted clouds and left a visible trail of ionized particles in the upper atmosphere. For several seconds, the display continued, energy pouring from the ship, through Ben, and safely away from the planet below. Finally, the flow subsided, the weapon's charge depleted. Chromastone collapsed onto the ship's hull, his body smoking and partially cracked from the ordeal. With the immediate danger past, Ben reverted to human form, lying exhausted on the cold metal surface miles above the Earth. "Did it," he whispered, staring up at the blue sky. "Stopped it." The victory was short-lived. A mechanical grinding sound drew Ben's attention to a hatch opening nearby. From it emerged Kevin, still partially merged with ship technology, his face contorted with fury. "You just don't know when to quit, do you, Tennyson?" Kevin snarled, advancing toward him. "You ruined everything." Ben struggled to his feet, his body aching from the energy discharge. The Omnitrix was still functioning, master control still active, but exhaustion slowed his reactions. "It's over, Kevin," Ben insisted. "The weapon's discharged. Bellwood is safe." "For now," Kevin agreed. "But the Chimerian hammer has more weapons. And I'm still connected to its systems, weakened, but connected." He raised his arm, which transformed into a cannon-like appendage crackling with energy. "Let's finish what we started, partner. Just you and me." Ben dodged the first energy blast, rolling across the ship's hull and transforming mid-motion. This time, he became a massive, dinosaur-like alien with tremendous strength. "Humongosaur," he bellowed, growing even larger as this form's size-changing ability activated. Kevin fired again, the blast striking Humongosaur's tough hide with minimal effect. Ben charged, each thunderous step denting the hull beneath him. "You were right about one thing, Kevin," Ben called as he closed the distance. "Power does matter. But how you use it matters more." He swung a massive fist, connecting solidly with Kevin's cybernetic body and sending him skidding across the hull. Kevin recovered quickly, his merged form drawing power directly from the ship to heal his damages. Still spouting hero garbage, Kevin spat, his body reconfiguring as he absorbed more of the hull material. "I preferred you as a villain." At least you were honest about what you wanted. I was lying to myself, Ben replied, continuing his advance. Taking whatever I wanted, hurting people, building our little empire, it wasn't freedom. It was just another kind of prison. Kevin launched himself forward, his enhanced speed surprising Ben. Metal fists crashed into Humongosaur's jaw, following with a flurry of blows too fast to block. Ben staggered backward, nearly losing his footing on the curved hull. Look at you, Kevin taunted, pressing his advantage. All that power, and you're holding back. The old Ben would have crushed me by now. The old Ben was a scared kid drunk on power, Ben shot back, regaining his balance. The new Ben is trying to be better. Kevin laughed, the sound distorted by his partial merger with technology. Better? Or just weaker? He gestured to the city far below. They'll never accept you, you know. After everything you've done, you'll always be a monster to them. The word struck home, voicing doubts Ben had been suppressing since his change of heart. Maybe Kevin was right. Maybe it was too late to go back, too late for redemption. Kevin saw the hesitation and pressed harder. That's why we worked so well together, Tennyson. We understood each other. We both knew what it was like to be different, to be feared, to be powerful in a world that couldn't handle us. For a moment, Ben wavered. The partnership with Kevin had felt right in a way few things in his life ever had. Two outsiders against the world, making their own rules, answering to no one. We could still do it, Kevin continued, his voice softening. Forget the planet cracker. That was overkill anyway. We take this ship, we establish ourselves as a force to be reckoned with. Not destroying cities, just controlling them. Like we planned. Ben's massive form stood motionless, considering. It would be so easy to go back to that path. To embrace the power, the freedom, the respect that came with fear. Ben. Max's voice crackled through a communication device on the hull nearby. Whatever he's telling you, don't listen. This isn't just about Bellwood anymore. Azmouth has detected additional ships approaching Earth, Vilgax's fleet. If Kevin maintains control of the Chimerian hammer when they arrive. The transmission cut off abruptly, likely jammed by Kevin's control of the ship's systems. More complications, Kevin shrugged. Nothing we can't handle together. But the interruption had broken the spell. Ben saw with sudden clarity what accepting Kevin's offer would mean, not freedom, but endless conflict. Not respect, but isolation. Not power used responsibly, but power that would eventually consume them both. No, Ben said firmly, his resolve returning. We tried it your way, Kevin. We tried being the bad guys. All it led to was this, you half-machine, me almost destroying everything I care about. So that's your final answer? Kevin's expression hardened. Turning your back on me again? I'm offering you a hand, Ben corrected him, reverting to human form in a gesture of trust. Come back with me. Help me make things right. For a brief moment, something vulnerable flickered across Kevin's face, the lost, angry teenager beneath the technological enhancements. Then it vanished, replaced by cold fury. You've made your choice, Kevin snarled, his merged form drawing more power from the ship. Now live with the consequences. He attacked with renewed ferocity, forcing Ben to transform again, this time into a ghostly alien with one eye and tentacle-like appendages. Ghost freak. Ben announced, his form turning intangible as Kevin's fist passed harmlessly through him. The battle ranged across the ship's hull, a desperate struggle between former partners now turned enemies. Ben cycled through alien forms rapidly, using master control to adapt to each of Kevin's attacks, heat blast to counter Kevin's metal components, big chill to freeze his circuitry, upgrade to temporarily seize control of his technological parts. But Kevin fought with the desperation of someone with nothing left to lose, drawing ever more power from the ship even as it damaged his human components. His body became a chaotic mixture of alien technology and raw energy, powerful but increasingly unstable. You're killing yourself, Kevin. Ben shouted after a particularly vicious exchange left both combatants momentarily winded. The merger is breaking down your cellular structure. Worth it, Kevin gasped, blue energy crackling erratically across his form. If it means taking you down with me. He raised both hands, channeling all his remaining power into one devastating attack. The energy buildup was visible, growing exponentially as Kevin drew from the ship's deepest reserves. Ben had seconds to react. He could dodge, could transform into something intangible or invulnerable. But that would leave the energy discharge to find another target, potentially the ship itself, or worse, the city below. Instead, he transformed into a new alien, one he hadn't used before, one that came to him through Master Control's expanded access. Feedback, the new form announced, a sleek, one-eyed being with plug-like appendages extending from his fingers and antenna. Kevin released his attack, a massive wave of energy that would have vaporized any normal target. But Feedback didn't dodge. Instead, he extended his hands, the plug appendages connecting with the energy wave itself. What? Kevin exclaimed as his attack was literally absorbed into Ben's new form. Energy conductor, Ben explained, his body glowing brighter as he channeled the massive power influx. Perfect for dealing with overcharged opponents. With the absorbed energy enhancing his strength and speed, Feedback closed the distance between them in an instant. His plugs connected directly to Kevin's technological components, creating a circuit that allowed Ben to drain the power Kevin had stolen from the ship. No. Kevin struggled, trying to break the connection. You can't, I can, Ben replied firmly. And I am. The process was like drawing poison from a wound. As the stolen energy flowed out of Kevin and into Feedback, the technological components that had merged with his body began to disengage. Bit by bit, the human Kevin emerged from the technological shell he'd created. Finally, the last connections broke. Kevin collapsed to the hull, fully human again, exhausted and defeated. The ship's systems, freed from his control, began to stabilize. Ben reverted to human form, kneeling beside his former partner. It's over, Kevin. Let's go home. Kevin looked up, his expression a mixture of anger, confusion, and, most surprisingly, relief. There's no going back for me, Tennyson. You know that. Before Ben could respond, the hull beneath them vibrated as a transport tube extended from the command center. Max and Azmouth emerged, approaching cautiously. Ben. Max called. Are you alright? I'm fine, Ben assured him. Kevin's, contained. Azmouth examined the human teenager with scientific curiosity. Remarkable. His cellular structure should have been completely destabilized by the technological merger. Yet he appears largely intact. Lucky me, Kevin muttered sarcastically. The ship? Ben asked. Returning to normal operational parameters, Azmouth reported. However, we have a more pressing concern. Long-range scanners have confirmed multiple Chimerian vessels approaching Earth orbit. Vilgax's fleet arrives within the hour. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, still in master control mode. Let them come. We'll be ready. No, Benjamin, Azmouth shook his head. This is not a battle for one wielder, even with master control activated. This requires a coordinated response. The plumbers? Max suggested. More than that, Azmouth replied. I've taken the liberty of contacting certain allies. The Galactic Enforcers are en route, as are representatives from the Galvan High Council. Earth will not face this threat alone. Ben nodded, relief mixing with determination. What do we do with Kevin? And Vilgax, for that matter? Vilgax remains contained below, Max reported. As for Kevin, that's complicated. Kevin laughed bitterly. Just say it, old man. I'm headed for the null void, right? The plumber's own little pocket dimension prison. Max's expression confirmed Kevin's suspicion. Your actions today nearly caused a planetary catastrophe. There will be consequences. Whatever, Kevin shrugged, though the forced casualness couldn't completely hide his fear. Not like I haven't been locked up before. Ben felt a twinge of guilt. Kevin had been his partner, had shown him the ropes of building their criminal enterprise. Yes, he'd gone too far, but Ben wasn't innocent either. There may be an alternative, Azmouth said unexpectedly. The boy possesses remarkable abilities, his energy absorption and technological interface capabilities are unique among Earth humans. Properly channeled, such talents could be valuable. What are you suggesting? Max asked cautiously. Rehabilitation rather than mere incarceration, Azmouth clarified. Under proper supervision, of course. The Galvan Science Academy has a program for beings with unusual abilities. Kevin looked skeptical. You want to turn me into a lab rat? I want to offer you an opportunity, Azmouth corrected. To understand your powers, to develop them responsibly, and perhaps, eventually, to use them constructively. The offer hung in the air, unexpected and transformative. Kevin glanced at Ben, confusion evident in his expression. Why would you help me? After everything I did? Because someone's giving me a second chance, Ben replied, gesturing to the Omnitrix. Seems only fair to pass it on. Before Kevin could respond, the ship's alert systems activated. On the horizon, barely visible against the blue sky, multiple objects appeared, the vanguard of Vilgax's approaching fleet. We need to move, Max urged. Get back to the command center and prepare for their arrival. As they made their way back inside the Chimerian hammer, Ben found himself walking alongside Kevin, now restrained but cooperative. You really think you can make this hero thing work? Kevin asked quietly. After everything we did? Ben considered the question seriously. I don't know. But I have to try. Why? Because with great power comes great responsibility, Ben said, the words feeling right in a way they hadn't when Grandpa Max first said them. And I've got more power than most. Kevin snorted. Still sounds like a sucker's deal to me. Maybe, Ben acknowledged. Or maybe it's just growing up. In the command center, preparations were underway for the coming confrontation. Max had established communication with Plumber forces on Earth, while Azmouth coordinated with approaching Allied ships. The Chimerian hammer, once Vilgax's weapon, was being repurposed as Earth's first line of defense. Ben stood at the viewport, watching the approaching fleet grow larger. The master control hummed with potential on his wrist, thousands of alien forms available at a thought. The power was intoxicating, just as it had been when he first found the Omnitrix. The difference now was how he chose to use it. Behind him, the door slid open as Gwen entered the command center, having been transported up from the surface. Nice ship, she commented, joining him at the viewport. Planning to redecorate, or keeping the whole, evil alien warlord aesthetic? Despite everything, Ben found himself smiling. I'm thinking something in blue and green might be nice. Gwen studied her cousin, noting the changes in him, subtle but significant. The arrogant smirk was gone, replaced by something more balanced, more thoughtful. So, she said finally, you're really doing this? The whole hero thing? Going to try, Ben nodded. Got a lot to make up for. You know it won't be easy, right? People don't forget. The stuff you did in Bellwood, the extortion, the threats, the property damage, that doesn't just go away because you stopped a bigger threat. I know, Ben acknowledged. One good deed doesn't erase the bad ones. But it's a start. Gwen's expression softened. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, doofus. It takes guts to admit you were wrong. Thanks, dweeb, Ben replied, the childhood nicknames now carrying affection rather than animosity. The moment was interrupted as alarms blared throughout the command center. The main display activated, showing the lead ships of Vilgax's fleet entering Earth's upper atmosphere. They're hailing us, Max reported from the communications console. On screen, Ben instructed, stepping forward. The display shifted, revealing the bridge of the lead vessel. Instead of Vilgax, however, the commander appeared to be a robotic entity, one of the warlord's lieutenants. Unidentified controllers of the Chimerian hammer, the robot announced. You will surrender the vessel and release Lord Vilgax immediately. Failure to comply will result in orbital bombardment of Earth population centers. Ben glanced at Max, who nodded encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, Ben addressed the fleet commander. This is Ben Tennyson, wielder of the Omnitrix and acting defender of Earth. Vilgax is in custody for violations of the Galactic Code. Your forces are outnumbered and outgunned. Allied ships from the Galactic Enforcers and the Galvan High Council are approaching your position from behind. To emphasize his point, the secondary displays showed the incoming Allied vessels, sleek, advanced ships that made Vilgax's fleet look primitive by comparison. You have two options, Ben continued, surprising himself with the authority in his voice. Withdraw immediately, or face the combined forces of Earth and its allies. Your choice. The robot commander hesitated, clearly receiving information from its sensors about the approaching Allied fleet. This is not over, it declared finally. Lord Vilgax has many loyal followers across the galaxy. Earth has made a powerful enemy this day. Earth has made powerful friends too, Ben countered. And I'll be watching. The communication cut off abruptly. Moments later, the fleet began to alter course, moving away from Earth's atmosphere and back toward open space. They're retreating, Max confirmed, relief evident in his voice. A cheer went up from the Plumber operatives who had joined them on the bridge. Gwen hugged Ben impulsively, while Azmouth nodded with quiet approval. Well done, Benjamin, the creator said. Your first act of true heroism. Ben shook his head. Just cleaning up my own mess. If I hadn't found the Omnitrix, if I hadn't used it the way I did, none of this would have happened. Perhaps, Azmouth acknowledged. Or perhaps Vilgax would have claimed the Omnitrix and conquered Earth unopposed. The universe is full of possibilities, and regret is rarely productive. So what happens now? Ben asked, looking around at the alien ship, at his family, at the Omnitrix still humming with Master Control's unlimited potential. Now comes the hard part, Max said, placing a hand on his grandson's shoulder. Making amends. 6 months later, Ben Tennyson stood on the roof of Bellwood's newly rebuilt City Hall, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Much had changed since the day Vilgax's fleet retreated from Earth. The most visible changes were physical. Portions of Bellwood damaged during Ben's brief criminal career had been repaired, often by Ben himself, using various alien forms to help with construction and cleanup. The abandoned factory that had served as his and Kevin's headquarters was now a community center, funded anonymously through Plumber channels. Less visible but more significant were the institutional changes. Earth had been formally recognized by the Galactic Council as a protected planet, with a new Plumber base established in orbit. Max Tennyson had come out of retirement to serve as Earth's liaison, his decades of experience proving invaluable as humanity took its first tentative steps onto the galactic stage. Gwen had begun formal training in her anodite abilities, studying under visiting alien mentors. Her powers had grown exponentially, making her a formidable force in her own right, and occasionally, a partner in Ben's heroic endeavors. Kevin was off-world, enrolled in the Galvan rehabilitation program Azmouth had suggested. Reports indicated he was making progress, his unique abilities channeled into constructive applications. Ben received occasional messages, never friendly, but not overtly hostile either. A relationship in progress, like so many things. As for Ben himself, the changes were profound. Master Control had been deactivated by mutual agreement with Azmouth, returning the Omnitrix to its original configuration with time limits and a restricted selection of aliens. Not as a punishment, but as a reminder that power was best used with restraint. He now worked openly as a hero, responding to emergencies both terrestrial and extraterrestrial. The citizens of Bellwood had been wary at first, remembering his brief reign as a superpowered criminal. But consistent acts of heroism had begun to shift public perception. "Thought I'd find you up here," Gwen's voice interrupted his reflection. She landed gracefully beside him, pink energy dissipating around her as she solidified. "Just thinking," Ben replied, offering a small smile. "Dangerous activity," she teased. "Don't strain yourself." Ben rolled his eyes, but the familiar banter felt comfortable now, a reminder of normalcy in a life that had become decidedly abnormal. "Grandpa sent me to find you," Gwen continued. "The new plumber recruits are arriving at the base. He thought you might want to welcome them." Ben nodded. "I'll be there." Gwen hesitated, studying her cousin with unusually serious eyes. "Are you okay? You've been quieter lately." "Just processing," Ben admitted. 6 months ago, I was using the Omnitrix to terrorize shopkeepers and build a criminal empire. Now I'm helping train alien police officers to protect Earth. It's a lot. Do you ever regret it?" Gwen asked carefully. "Giving up all that power, all that control?" Ben considered the question honestly. "Sometimes," he admitted finally. "Not the hurting people part. But the freedom, the feeling of being special, of not having to answer to anyone, yeah, I miss that sometimes." "What keeps you on the right path, then?" Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, its green glow constant and reassuring against his wrist. "Knowing that real power isn't about control. It's about responsibility." He smiled slightly. "Plus, being a hero has its perks too. Like the Ben 10 fan club." Gwen teased. "Or the action figure line." "Hey, those action figures are collectibles," Ben protested with mock offense. Their laughter was interrupted by a beeping from both their communicators, the signal for an emergency. "Duty calls," Gwen sighed. "Looks like forever night's activity at the museum. Something about an alien artifact." Ben stood, activating the Omnitrix with practiced ease. "Race you there?" "You're on," Gwen replied, energy already swirling around her hands. As Ben transformed into Jet Ray and launched into the evening sky, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. Finding the Omnitrix. The temptation of power. The fall into villainy. The difficult climb back toward redemption. It wasn't perfect. Some people still feared him. Some would never trust him again. The damage he'd done couldn't be erased completely, only repaired over time with consistent action. But for the first time since that fateful night in the forest when a strange watch fell from the sky, Ben Tennyson felt truly powerful, not because of the aliens he could transform into, but because he had transformed himself. Below him, Bellwood spread out like a map of possibilities, not a kingdom to rule, but a community to protect. The city didn't belong to him anymore. He belonged to it. And somehow, that felt like the greatest power of all. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.